And as promised, the fabled backstory. If anyone's watching this, I think we have to go back to where it started. States haven't existed for 20 odd fucking years, but Colorado, roughly, I don't know. The mountain line, not the one in the east, what's that called? Appalachia, the one in the west. A lot of it's underwater after the nukes, but a lot of it's still above water, so that's where the Duke's place is. Now, the Duke, great dude. No, he fucking isn't. Think, how do I explain it? It's not slavery, but you have to work, like, all the time. From when you're a little kid, you're doing school, or his education. It's not school. None of the knowledge is taught unless you need to be an engineer. You're taught to manufacture this part. You're taught to do this thing. You're not taught to actually be an engineer. You're not a master. It's very like isolated. Each person has their role, is how I would put it. And right, let's head over here. So each person has their role, and so, for instance, you'd be on a manufacturing line. One person would manufacture bullets, the other would manufacture the hammer, the handle, every part of a gun. Nobody gets the whole recipe, and that's how he wanted it. And I wouldn't have left that, except for a few factors. I had a grandpa growing up. That's where most of my stories pre-war came from, or like pre this apocalypse. I'm gonna call it the war. He always had a story. He was a great man, and he lived through a lot. Of course, I think everyone did. He would tell us about sports, about video games, about everything. Not that you didn't have those with the Duke. No, the Duke gave you stuff like that. You would have access to movies and stuff. It's how you keep people docile. It's like gladiators. I'd read about those. The Romans would put on gladiator shows to keep the people docile. He would let us have TV and movies and, entertainment. And it worked on most people. It really did. Like, it worked on me. But Grandpa's stories were something else. Tales of bravery, tales of sadness, tales of monotony. But it was all individual. I think some of that good old-fashioned American freedom seeped in there. And I don't even think even then I would have left, except when we got assigned our jobs at 10 years old, which was kind of what happened. You got assigned like a career, quote unquote, when you reached a certain age. I got assigned Forerunner. Okay, how to explain it? Forerunners, that's a fancy ass name for like forward operations. So there's the bomb areas, like think the combination of this, all just crater pocked shithole, and the radiation. And you put on hazmat suits and you go there. And zombies act weird in radiation. You've seen it. They absorb it like nothing else. It becomes a part of them. They don't just exist in radiation. Like they become an embodiment of it. And they get bigger. They get stronger. And people who stay in that radiation too long, they don't die. They become a little crazy. And Forerunners, their job is to go into the radiation for them. It's to venture in there, and it's to retrieve technology. Your helicopters, your tactical assault rifles, all the shit I'm getting out here. Think that, but more advanced. Because he has shit like that. I don't even know why I'm building a tower when he has, like, I don't know if he could even create it, but, like, missiles and shit. But I was assigned to that, and that's a death sentence. The oldest person there is the trainer, and they don't even go on missions. They're like 20. The life expectancy is 5 expeditions. And that's an average, because you have the really smart ones who go 20, and you have the really stupid ones that go 1. And you guys have seen me. I'm not that smart. And I didn't want to die, so I went to my brother, I went to my grandfather, I told them, like, what I got assigned. My brother was assigned a chef. My grandfather, he was retired, which you can do if you do, like, a great service for the nation, essentially. So if you do a great deed for the Duke, and the Duke was essentially, don't think he was the king or whatever, he was more just like a baron of the area. Like there's someone over him. There's always someone over someone, of course. And he was just like in charge of this general area. And the Duke had retired my grandfather. I actually never heard that story. I never will unless my grandfather's still alive. I don't think he is, because it's been like 10, maybe 15 years now. And my grandfather, he grew up, I think, on a farm, and he moved to the city. And he had a go bag, so like a bag for him to leave. And he gave me the go bag. He gave me like all of his tools, everything, including a gun, because he wanted to go back to his farm. And I was quite upset at hearing this and kill himself before he died, because he wasn't always the healthiest. He wasn't like sick. He wasn't dying of anything, but he was not always the most able-bodied or the healthiest among us. And I guess he was going to make his go, and he had a way out of the Great Walls. So think like what I've done, except as thick as these pillars and wrapped around a huge settlement. That's why there is no, and we all lived in essentially like containers like this, stacked on top of each other, welded into each other. None would fall in on each other because each one was supporting another one. That's how he described our society too. Was the inside of the walls as some crazy analogy for the duty we had to each other, how none of us would fall, and the society only worked if each one, the older ones at the bottom supported the younger ones at the top. I don't want to get into the fucking speeches. And so, I was just going to go on my own. I wouldn't have survived. I really wouldn't have. But my brother made the regrettable choice of saying he needed to come with me. And for obvious reasons, I'll regret that till the day I die. And sorry, I'm getting a little bit emotional. He said, I'll leave the settlement with you. And we did. We made it out over the course of a month. We executed a plan to escape, and it worked all right. And once we'd made it out, we didn't really know where to go. We kind of roamed for a while. I'd say over the course of a year, we didn't settle down. It was moving through smaller towns. That's why I said I know shit like this. Smaller towns. We never went anywhere like this. We would stop in here. We tried to avoid the zombies. I was always a lughead. He was very cunning. He'd lead the zombies into walking over broken floorboards, or he'd get them into an electrical wire or something, because back then, there's still some electricity in a lot of these houses, but I don't know why, maybe like the nuclear plants or something. But he was always a trapster. I would go in there, fist swinging, sledgehammer swinging. I didn't really have the intelligence he had, I guess is how I'd word it. He was just always smarter than me. I'm gonna go craft some cobblestone. And we roamed for about a year before we made it down further south. And it's a bit warmer. And by south, I mean maybe we're even to like Central America. It's hard with maps. It's all a lot of territories with very few people in them. And we made it south, and that's when we encountered our first like settlement. It was tiny. Had a bunch of cars stacked on top of each other for a wall, and we stayed there. It had to be 6 months, but I think we were just, we were teens, we were rowdy, we were young adults, so we weren't the smartest. We explored into an abandoned warehouse where there was just a lot of them. It turned out they'd been putting them in there, not necessarily like, how do I explain it? They weren't in there like as punishment or something. They had just been like guiding the zombies in there and closing the door behind them. And we let them all out, and we, it was like a blood moon horde. It was a night of hell. I don't know how many I killed. I don't know how many any of us killed, but we were not allowed back in those doors when we left that morning to scavenge. There's like, take what you gathered from the city and fucking go. We went. And that's where it leads into the stories I told before. We traveled from place to place. We met people. We usually traveled just us two. But over the course of 5 years, so I was around 17, uh, we, I think the longest we stayed at a place was like 40, 50 days. We knew never stay anywhere for too long. But what we'd do is we would find settlers as we come down through that more warmer climate where there's not really a danger. As you can tell, I'm up north again. As we come through that warmer climate, we'd heard tale, because occasionally you get one of the Duke's escapees, that we were on the list of the wanted. And the wanted is, people who owe Duke a blood debt. You owe him a blood debt if you escape, because you're not supposed to leave. It's indentured servitude. Your life, it comes at a cost, basically. And, of course, us leaving was not good. The Duke did not like that. And I guess for good reason. He had every reason to be pissed at us from whatever twisted worldview he had. But I don't think it justified, him coming after us, and so we didn't worry. Or I didn't think. My brother worried a lot. I don't think he slept every night all the way through. And it would be just us two, but we'd almost always settle with one or two more people. We'd find somebody in a town like this, and convince them. We'd find somebody like up here, and we'd make a place in the middle. And we would kind of have those two out in those cities scavenging, bring us stuff, and we were good builders. This is all I learned from him. I'm the strong one, and I was able to build shit like this. I don't live in, he could construct whole houses, is what I'm trying to say. I live in these points of interest. He could construct whole buildings. And we did that. We'd go 50, 60 days in a place. Then the hordes would get too big and we'd move just straight out of the county. You'd go around a nuke site, or you'd go around a blast site, because they don't usually wander through there. If they get there, the zombies get in there, they just kind of stay there. So they get strong, but they get sluggish. Well, some of them get really fast, but that's a whole other thing. I think those are the ones that probably lead hordes or somehow cause the hordes. I want to know how. And we did that, like I said, till I was like 17. And that's when we got cocky. We did ourselves dirty. We would stay in a place, pushing the limits, 80 days, 100 days. We felt very sure of ourselves. We were very strong. But in doing that, we left bigger tracks. And that's when we had our first encounter with one of the Duke's guys. 1 second, I need to cough. We had our first encounter with one of the Duke's guys. And, it was just a scout. And we... Okay, if my brother's listening to this, we let him live. I did not. I stabbed that fucker in the back and dumped him in a manhole. But I assume he wasn't alone, because we had more and more come after us, groups, but we were never alone. At this point, I should say from 12 to 17, we started out just the two of us. By the time we were 17, we traveled pretty constantly, a group of 4 or 5. Me, my brother, rest in peace, Derek, Brogan, Sasha. some other people, Nathaniel, the whole group, and we made the best of it, even though we were being like tracked. Until one night, it wasn't just a horde. We also had been sabotaged. If we had supports like this, they were blown up and we barely made out alive. So we traveled so far east and so far north, we didn't think anyone would be coming after us. But you guys know where that's going. And they didn't come after us. But we didn't know the zombies were different there. After around 70, 80 days, we had settled our roots so far in that we actually couldn't make it out. Because the zombies there were different. They would track you. It was like the spiders. They would run like ferals. Like those big guys we met in the tower, but think entire hordes of those. And it was like they were smart. They like cornered us in where we were. We couldn't really leave the home we had built. And on day 112, like I said, or maybe I said 140, it's one of those numbers. That's when everything came to a head. I think it was 140. 112 is when we lost Brogan. Or maybe that's when we lost Nathaniel. Came to a head. That's when he died. That's when everyone died. And I traveled on my own for another 2 odd years. Up there, 23, 24. I never made friends again. Like, yeah, I met people. Yeah, I made allies, quote unquote. Just didn't feel the same without him. I think for good reason. I survived. And then I got sloppy. I think it's probably because I wanted to get caught. And the Duke's guys did catch me. That's why I woke up here. It's basically all I can give you. A lot of it's foggy, that's why dates and shit might be off or completely wrong. I don't know what's going on with my memory. It's not quite there. I think maybe whatever he did to give me fucking amnesia, bash my head in, give me 100 concussions, whatever. There's about 2 months missing from my memory, and then waking up here. So that's why I said, however long ago, that maybe I have like a chip in my head, and maybe that's why I can't walk out. It's not that I'm getting radiation sickness, because it's very immediate. Maybe there's like a dog collar implant in the base of my skull. I don't know. He had fancy shit, fancy technology, and I'm not going to put much past him. And that's basically the fancy story. I guess I could go into details of tales, like when we met my sister. That was between we were traveling as the group of 5 at that point, so it had to be post 17. And it turns out my sister had left the Duke too, but she'd moved in not with another like complete baron of the wasteland. I don't know what the fuck I call him. Baron sounds like another ruler, but it was like remnants of the military. I used to watch from the archives. I used to watch tapes of this game, like Enclave, or like remnants of the military. And she'd moved in with them. We stayed there for a bit, but honestly, a bunch of squareheads could not conform with our 5 to 7 group. There's a couple names I'm just not gonna name, because I'm pretty sure they may have made it out there too. If they listen to this, they'll know who I am, and I'm not sure if they'll hate me or blame me. I sure blame me, so I'd just rather not risk it. But it was, as long as we knew my sister's safe. That's why she may still be out there. I would not put it past her to be somewhere out there, surviving. I hope. And that's the silly little tale I've been hyping up like it's a some grand reveal. It's really not, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. It is my life after all. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day or whenever you're watching this. Hope you guys come back for more. If not, I hope you enjoyed your time here. Hope to see you guys again next time. If not, that's alright.